All things in life have a value, and all actions in life have a cost. Each day, humans use these two judgments to determine what is right and what is wrong. Yet mankind is imperfect, prone to greed and carelessness, so much that potential great value can be traded away for what seems like a desperate need of the time, burning potential futures to gain the riches of the present. These Faustian bargains become all the more prevalent as lives hang in the balance. When pushed towards the brink by threats both existential and metaphysical, a grim weighing of the scales could find that morals and even souls were not as valuable as gaining the power to vanquish foes. All manner of treachery, brutality, and profane ceremony could be used as the demand of survival forced concession after concession, making monsters of those who had dedicated their lives to fighting them. Such was the fate of the hunters of Louisiana. In the late 1800s, the Hunters Association was the world's most prominent and most secretive organization dedicated to combating the multitude of paranormal threats that encroached upon the mortal world. It sought to discover, research, and eradicate all that would threaten the fragile peace of human existence. The association had for many centuries existed in one form or another and had spread across the world in response to the increase in strange phenomena and paranormal activity. Its legacy of success was shown best in that the world at large did not know of them, nor of the malicious entities that were hunted by its members across the globe. The American division of the Hunters Association, the AHA, was well established in that time, led by its director, Dr. Philip Hoff Jones, and held exclusive domain in hunting the paranormal as a business within the country. Entry into the association was the only way to reap the rewards of the hunt, to receive payment for the collection of bounties, tokens of essence extracted from the corpses of otherworldly monsters. Yet the organization had, through centuries of hard-learned lessons written in the blood of slain and fallen members, experienced that consorting with the dark arts wasn't just a matter of physical threats from hunting occult entities, for merely being in the proximity of some of these paranormal creatures was not just a taxing burden on their mind, it was also a slow suffocation of their soul. To maintain their presence, withstand the ferocious nature of the other side, and continue their fight against the obscure and unknown, the organization concocted through an endless series of trial and error a makeshift ceremonial rite that would shield them against the forces of darkness. This concoction and its execution would simply come to be known as the Blood Ritual. Those in command in the AHA followed old traditions for initiating those brave, foolish, or desperate enough to risk their life fighting overwhelmingly powerful monstrosities. Recruits were brought before an intricate ring of ritualistic symbols and concentric circles drawn on the ground in chalk. The prospects were then made to walk the circles, reciting an oath of duty to the hunt and an oath of silence regarding its practices. It was an effective binding oath, almost bewitching in the way that few ever crossed the association itself or broke their vow of silence, even as lethal treachery between hunters was and became ever so more present. The final element of the hunter's ritual was receiving two boons, the weapons every initiate needed to fight back against the supernatural. The first was a crucial resistance to the corruption, the sinister effect that spread from the husks and hives, for without it, a single scratch or sting from an insect could turn the infected necrotic and eventually lead to the victim's transformation into a shambling husk themselves. The second gift was the gift of sight, a mystical ability to peer beyond the edges of the natural world to not only see, but also touch the other side. It was a malleable gift with a multitude of applications, as those with the sight could track their targets by following the tear in the fabric between worlds that allowed the corruption to fester. It could be tuned to the hunter's intuition, allowing them to sense others tainted by the corruption, or even sense traps placed by their adversaries. Yet it could also be used to tap into the fabric between life and death, where the hunter could utilize it to see the life force of other creatures, both alive and recently deceased, as well as influencing the fading threads to either bring vitality and resurrection, or steal what little remained in their dying breaths. Both gifts came from the same source, a blood serum that would form the backbone of the association's ability to fight the otherworldly and the malevolent. The traditional blood serum was a blend of herbalism and occultism, a surprisingly simple distillation of 3 common medicinal herbs that many hunters were capable of collecting and brewing out in the field. Hackberries were the first and most benign ingredient, then followed groundsel, a poisonous weed used to assist in purging the body of waste and parasites. The final ingredient was the most dangerous and perhaps the most important for the serum's intended effects: devil's snare, a profoundly toxic flower infamous for its hallucinogenic properties, a flower that long had been used to induce intense visions of a delirious and occult nature. The plants were ground down with a mortar and pestle, then boiled in a fire. The resulting mixture was a viscous concoction that would be either injected straight into the bloodstream or ingested as a drink with a repulsive metallic taste, which most initiates confused with blood and struggled to keep down. No matter the means of utilization, the effect was the same. The ingestion of the serum, hand in hand with the ceremony, marked the path of no return for anyone brave or foolish enough to commit to the ritual. The newly initiated hunter was permanently changed, some would even say contaminated, as they through the ritual serum were now bound by blood to the clandestine hunt. The benefits of the serum to protect and empower were clear to all who faced the corruptive unearthly forces of the hunting grounds, yet the toll the hunter paid was far greater and more horrific than any prospects could ever dare to imagine. Even when fortunate souls survived the bloodshed of the bayou, the price of darkside was paid in a slow damnation, distinctly evident in the blemishes of disease seen on the most veteran of hunters. Festering sores and paling skin were but the minor side effects, where sooner rather than later a foul stench of rot or decay would follow the hunter wherever they went, as their souls slowly deteriorated. Yet that was not all, for worse still was the serum's effect on women, a horrible side effect known only to the highest in the organization of the AHA, a side effect so violent and traumatic it convinced the Louisiana branch of the organization to forbid the initiation of female hunters for decades to come. However, in the pursuit of power and riches, this decree came to be broken by a woman known as Hannah Kinney. Along with the aid of her husband, They disguised Hannah as a man and got her through the initiation ritual. However, the couple were soon to discover the reason for the ban of female initiates. Bound by the occult oaths and altered through the elixir's dark nature, were any initiated hunter to conceive a child, the blood in their body, now warped by the ritual and serum, would latch on to the fetus, taking the flesh for its own designs. During the pregnancy, the expectant mother would gain formidable power, becoming an unstoppable force of violence and determination. Yet at the point of culmination, the pregnancy would ultimately prove fatal. Hannah Kinney would die giving birth to a diabolic entity, laughing maniacally at the top of her lungs, as this creature, more perilous than any of the monstrosities hunted by the association, emerged from within her, tearing her body apart in the process. This single creature managed to massacre a dozen hunters in its rampage before it was brought down. However, at this point, it was already too late, for Hannah's birth had been done within the vicinity of the sculptor, and the otherworldly entity had now claimed the fetus as its minion, now but another part of the corruption's endless army. The lack of female initiates worried the director of the AHA. To cut off such a valuable source of potential recruits was costly, yet still manageable in the early years before the Louisiana event. However, as the sculptor's encroaching corruption tightened its death grip around Louisiana, and the hordes of damned souls threatened all of humanity, the old ways proved ineffective in stemming the tides of darkness. A new measure was desperately needed, and no price was too high to pay for it. Desperate for a solution, the AHA turned to desperate measures, a desperation that took them through the endless stream of gossip and rumors in Louisiana, searching for any individual that might be able to help their cause. And here, buried beneath a pile of bodies, in the heart of hearsay and vilification, the organization followed a trail of blood through the depths of the many despicable souls that wandered the bayous, and at the end of the trail, they found the worst of them all, an outsider who went by the name of Lynch. Among the hunters of the association, she had a reputation of near supernatural power and occult knowledge, rumors that merely began to touch upon the surface of her true nature and the depths of her monstrous depravity. She had attained mythical status within the inner circles of hunters, allegedly of Irish origin, yet rumored to be something else. Something that wasn't human. Infamous for her ruthless, violent tendencies, vile, sadistic nature, and inability to be killed, she was a woman with absolutely no morals or integrity, driven by a simple-minded and single goal: the relentless eradication of the corruption, no matter the cost. Through her profound understanding of the occult and the other side, Lynch had developed a serum that far outweighed the AHA's, both in potency, protection, and side effects. Her inoculation, spread throughout the association by Dr. Philip Huff Jones, made it safe for women to be initiated, not by preventing the ritual blood infection of the fetus, but by rendering the recipient barren, forever unable to have children. Far exceeding the benefits of new recruits was the grisly price these initiates had to pay for this so-called improved inoculation. Yet the concept of sacrificing the future for the present is an eternal bane of mankind, deeply ingrained into the very heart of our shallow and greedy souls. Following in the practices of older, darker ways, Lynch invoked the power of otherworldly entities with pounds of flesh and offerings of souls to gain the ingredients needed for the serum. Yet, Lynch did not plan to make bargains with these spirits, but only to tempt them into a world where she would spring a trap on them and kill them. The preparations began with a human victim captured through force or deceit, who was then injected with a drug both anesthetic and paralytic. That the subject would not feel the gruesome torture to come was but a small mercy, yet hardly an intentional one on Lynch's part. Excruciating pain and unrelenting terror always provided better results, yet thrashing limbs and wails of agony would not only impede the barbaric procedure, it could also potentially bring unwanted attention to Lynch and the ritual. First, she impaled the victim to the ground with railroad spikes through their extremities. Then, with the practiced hand of a butcher, she carved off nearly all the skin of the body with a scalpel, extracting long bands of raw flesh, leaving only the face unflayed. These strips of flesh were then treated with an alchemical compound and hung to dry, to later be wound into a leathery rope. The tongue of the victim was then ripped out, and in a fashion resembling Kabbalistic name magic, was replaced with a piece of cloth sewn into place, bearing Lynch's own name. Next, she removed the eyes and lips of the victim, which were to be used in ritual conjuration. The last step was to draw out an intricate circle of salt, detailed with arcane binding symbols of ash, which would serve as the ethereal cage of the trap. By the time the preparations for the summoning were complete, the blind, tortured, and skinless victim had long since died from their wounds. But alas, blood loss was a much more preferable ending than experiencing the eldritch horrors that were to come. The fresh corpse was laid across one side of the circle, breaking the salt seal to act as the last temptation before damnation, and before too long, it would start to manifest. It was not strictly a demon, deity, spirit, or even creature as we would imagine it. However, the language of mankind falls short in its attempt to describe that which lies beyond our own understanding. Yet to themselves, in their infinite hubris, these beings called themselves gods. The ravenous entity appeared in our world as a wispy shimmer in the air, a shade that smelled faintly of sulfur and swamp. It latched onto the fleshless body as it became more corporeal, lapping at the blood and muscle with a distended purple tongue, emanating from something resembling a head. When the otherworldly entity strayed close to the broken circle, Lynch swiftly pushed the flayed corpse further in and closed the circle behind it, trapping the demon inside. Still, it paid no attention to Lynch, as it greedily gorged itself on the cadaver. Though mortal seemed to be a delicacy to it, live ones were so far beneath the creature as to be insignificant, while a more important feast was to be had. Surely there was nothing this human could do to it, and Lynch preyed on that underestimation and restrained the being with the flesh robes made from the same body it devoured. And thus began the second malevolent dissection, the second collection of profane ingredients. After killing the demon over a period of 7 days, the essence of the ethereal spirit would be distilled into the core components of the inoculation, demon's blood. Lynch would then bottle the compound and sell it to the AHA for not just the price of gold, but also the organization's soul. living long, the blood of the other side's demons would run through every initiate of the Louisiana branch of the American Hunters Association, blurring the gap between our world and the corruptions. It is not known how many shots of serum could be made from a single entity, nor whether Lynch's actions and the true nature of how to create the inoculation were known to Philip Huff Jones or other higher-ups in the association. Yet, if they did know, they did little to nothing to stop the grim harvest of humans and abominations alike. It was clear that the mission was far too important, and this murderous woman's usefulness to the cause far outweighed the lives that her ritual took. Still, the question remained, was she for our cause or her own? It is known that Lynch shared details of how to make the inoculation at least once, but only as a lethal deception. She gave false information as a means to bring ruin to a fledgling New York branch of hunters and leave them defenseless against the desiccating effects of the corruption. The sabotage was successful, and no soul lived to tell of suffering her betrayal. Yet by then, rumors of Lynch's dark arts had already begun to spread. After the death of Philip Huff Jones, as the Louisiana event spiraled out of control, following the splintering of the Louisiana branch of the AHA, more and more hunters began to suspect that this infamous Irish woman was far more than was obviously apparent. It was clear to everyone, Lynch was not to be trusted. The sentiment grew strong enough that 3 women, all marshals of the law, were sent to hunt Lynch down. Whether it was just rumor and innuendo, a more tangible transgression, or yet another of Lynch's deceptions that drove their course towards her is unknown. Regardless, the outcome was as predictable as it was brutal and callous. 2 of the women were gunned down in an instant, and the last of them was bewitched, held in a hypnotic trance as Lynch set to work. One last inoculation was to be created, her finest inoculation yet. By its components, the ritual followed as all the ones before it: the circle of salt, the injection, the strips of flesh carved away and treated. Yet it was all enhanced by the willingness of the mesmerized sacrifice to be devoured alive. The force of life in its last moments made all the difference in potency. Just as open terror could produce more powerful effects than pain suffocated by numbness, a life given was far stronger than one taken. As all the others had, the otherworldly being that came to feast upon the sacrifice was undone by Lynch at the culmination of the ritual, and its essence became the penultimate ingredient of the serum. The final was that of Lynch's own blood, twisting the concoction into a toxin designed to empower herself, becoming a new being in the process, one that could not exist outside of areas of supernatural corruption. Her time hiding her soon-to-be forsaken identity was coming to a close, and more brazen actions could be taken without fear of her plans being disrupted. Lynch revealed her true self at the height of the interfactional conflict between hunters, with her part in the resurrection of the drowned, dragging lost souls from the land of the dead and maintaining some measure of esoteric connection to them. It had now become undeniable. Lynch was a witch, one of the last few in America after the meticulous eradication carried out by witch hunters in New England, and one powerful enough to massacre those hunters who had brought her kind to the brink of extinction. It was said that those few souls that ascended beyond the occult power of witchcraft began to hunger for the darkest, most primordial deliverance, one with the ultimate price to pay. With her perfected inoculation, Lynch sought to cast aside her humanity entirely, to taste the blackness beyond sleep and bathe in the well that all curses come from. She would become a monster more powerful than the sculptor, and be able to devour what even that supreme ethereal being could not take for itself. Warped and twisted beyond human comprehension, saturated with eternal strength of eldritch horrors, along with her tainted inoculation circulating within the blood of each and every member of the American Hunters Association. Any sane person would feel a cold shiver run down their spine, as the one and only question now remained: what would become of those foolish, brave, or desperate enough to stand against her? Hey there, Hazmat here. Due to the time constraints of my current job, this video took a lot longer to get out than I originally anticipated, yet I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I did making it. And don't worry, I got much more lore coming down the line as well. As always, a big thanks goes out to the Hunters Lounge, specifically the exclusive Johnny Sevens, the exclusive Get Your Boy, and the exclusive Warmong. The VIPs: Corvo Bearslayer, Derivative, Doc Powell, Gino Lucero, Goose, Hambone, Jim and Bob, Corey Peterson, Michael Thornhill, Mordef Menace, Ryan, Slip, Stas Biestic, Sunrise Phoenix, TJ Crane, Texas Toast, and the Wizard of Copper. And of course, all the regulars. If you want to support me and the channel, consider signing up as a member either here on YouTube or on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Link is in the description below. I would also like to give a huge thanks to Rye from the official Hunt Showdown Discord for not only constructing the most comprehensive Hunt Showdown compendium ever known to man, but also for helping me write the script for this particular video. If you're interested in the lore of Hunt Showdown, I highly recommend checking out Rye's compendium, where you can find literally every entry related to the game. I'll leave a link for that in the description as well. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.